So I wanted to quickly show you. So the very first thing, hopefully you can see this, my circles are just the number of questions, okay? And so up here, I just put keynotes, all right? So that's the first thing. So if you have one of these, please pull it out. It'll make it a little bit easier as I go through this video. Now, as I stated in my email, when I was a classroom teacher, mine was not as, I'm gonna say organized as this. However, my students knew to do this anytime they took a test. In fact, they could not complete a test without me seeing their thinking, right? As the year progressed, we move into where students were able to choose and select which questions they would show their thinking on, all right? So for instance, if it's a question where it does not require like much thinking, it's just matter of, oh, okay, it's right here, then they just might put, like, for instance, if I'm in reading and I'm gonna write it on here and it's just like text evidence, then I just might have my kids put TE, like it's the question is asking me for text evidence, and then they're just going to put, okay, paragraph 1 sentence 3. Okay. And so then that's all that my kids would write right there. They wouldn't write anything else because nothing else is needed. Now, if I'm looking at math, the only time I would really want kids to put something here is if, let's say, they're doing conversion. Let's say that kids are like, the question is asking for them to go from gallons, let's say, to pints, right? And so for me, this all that I would want to see. I'm going from G to P. They do not need to write out the whole word and do all of that. This is just so that you know for a fact that they understood what the question was asking them to do. All right. Or let's say they was looking at the order of operations. So let's say, okay, first I have to multiply. Okay, then I'm going to have to, okay, add, and then, okay, eventually I'm going to have to subtract, or it might say, okay, I might need to round, right? That's all that I'm asking kids to do. Just show me, what was your order of operation? What did you do first, second, third? And then that's it. And maybe these are pieces that they can do in their head. They're not having to necessarily calculate. They just need to know what's the right order of operation. And then from there, I can see, okay, whether or not they're on the right track. All right. Then another one could be, let's say it's actually asking for them to, like, it's a fill in, it's an inline, maybe it's a SCR question. Then maybe it's just the keywords. And so maybe if I know the keywords are dealing with feelings, right? So I know I have to describe how they feel. And then you have sad, and I might just, okay, down, not good, right? So then that's all that my student would write, feelings. Okay, I know that's what they're asking me to describe. And then I'm just going to put some synonyms there so that as I go through my answer choices, this is what I'm looking for. Okay. And so this could happen two ways. For my students, they had to annotate questions before they even answered them. So if I had students annotate questions during the practice, like during the student at bats, because I noticed that kids are messing up maybe the order of operation, maybe they're not understanding when we're going from gallons to pints and then what that is. So maybe, okay, I'm going from gallons to pints. So I know then that I need to divide versus multiply. Then that's something that I would want my kids to show. So then the next thing I'll put here is equal. Okay, that means that I'm going to divide. And then that might be all that they put here that's on this top line. G to P equals what? Division. And that's it. And they may annotate that one question that way, and then we move on. So as you can see, this does not take long at all. So if you're having kids write out like a whole like sentence, these phrases, these stems, that's wrong. That's not what we're doing. More importantly, this is not the same thing as your response cards, okay? Your response cards are happening during your lesson, right? And you should have 3 of them. These are two different things, two different things. They're not being worked together. So if you have kids doing this and this, that's incorrect. My students practice here to reflect on what they've learned on and to stamp their learning, right? And I have 3 responses throughout my lesson. This is part of my student at bats because this is a MRS strategy. So don't forget your foundational pieces. Don't confuse the two. This is simply a MRS strategy that we've been using all school year, okay? This is to ensure that as students are working online, taking their assessments online, that they have a way to jot down their thinking and stamp the things that they need to remember. This is like a remembrance card. Like, hey, girl, don't forget you're going to multiply first before you add. It's just reminding kids of the thinking or what they should be doing before they start answering questions. Okay. So I can do this as pre-work, meaning I went through my questions. Now I annotated them. So I know exactly this is text evidence. I know it's in paragraph 1. And when I read this, I remember this happened like first in the beginning. So it's like sentence 3, right? So I've already annotated this. So when I get to this question, I know question 1 is text evidence and it's not an inferencing question. That's all it is. When I look at question 2, I can automatically say, okay, they're talking about different units and they're asking me to go from a larger unit to a smaller unit. So I know I need to divide first, or I need to divide in order to get the correct answer. Same thing here. This question is asking about the character feelings. I know when I read it that the character, even when I just made some emphasis, the character's feeling sad because it says a down, down day. Okay, then it asks me about their feelings. Well, if it's a down, down day, I know the person's feeling how? What? Sad. They're feeling disappointed. They're not feeling well. That's all that they're putting here. Then they're going to go back and then they should be answering. So, okay, the answer to number 2, okay, to number 1, okay, is B. Okay, this one's D. Okay, this one's A. All right. And so then in the boxes, that's just where they put their answers. But I could have already gotten to my final screen on the DOL, and then I'm just filling in this box. More importantly, keep in mind what I said at the beginning. They don't have to do this for every single question because every single question does not require me to do this work. So you're teaching them and you're modeling for kids which questions we're going to show our work on. Okay. So for me, if I were a reading teacher, I would want to make sure that my students did examples like number 1 and number 3, because these are the type of errors that are made in reading when they get to those questions. They confuse an inferencing question with what? A text evidence question. Then on top of that, a lot of the questions ask them to support their answers using what? Text evidence. So this is what I will have students practice. And as you can see, these are just acronyms. These aren't even words that they're writing down. So this can be done in a very quick, period of time. Additionally, when you look here, they're asking about what? How does a character feel? Very, very quickly. I know they're talking about the feelings. They're not talking about the thoughts. They're talking about how the character feel. So then I just need to make sure, do I have words that then describe feelings that I can link back to the answer choices? Something very simple. And as a math teacher, if I were you, I would want students to do things like this. If it is a conversion, if it's a 2-step, because I know I got to convert something from a larger unit to a smaller unit, or from a smaller unit to a larger unit, I need kids to have that mental note, but go ahead and jot that down, because if you don't, you'll end up doing the wrong order of operation, and then therefore you got the wrong answer. So again, this is not for all types of questions. These are for specific types of questions, and then it needs to align back to your data. So if I were a teacher, I would look back at my data and I will make sure that I model this for my students based on the common misconceptions I have seen all school year. For example, part A, part B questions. That's a great way to utilize this tool. Okay. So I don't want us to get bogged down with thinking this is another thing. It really isn't. This is a method for the students to prove their answers and to show their thinking in a very concise way. And when you model this for kids, they not only see the validity in it, but then they will practice using it on a regular basis. So while I'm still here, I want to give kudos to Miss Hilton. I really did see her rock this out early this morning at 8 something this morning. She was rocking this out with kids. I want to give her kudos for, pushing through and getting this in, because this is going to make a big difference for you and for your students. Because remember, the STAR test hasn't happened yet. This gives you information on their thinking, and now you can implement what the next step should be. But right now, you've only had A, B, C, or D, but you never really got to see what are my kids actually thinking when they're working through these questions. So if I were you, a move that needs to be made as early as tomorrow, you guys need to go back, look at your DOL, and you choose which questions you want your students to do this on. It does not have to be all 5. So I'm allowing you as a teacher to choose at least 2 to 3 questions that your students must show some type of work on. Okay. So again, big kudos to Miss Hilton. Thank you so much. And Miss Paris. I don't want to forget her. Miss Paris also had hers going as well. So kudos to those 2 teachers, but I'm needing 100% tomorrow. Okay. So your action step is to make sure that you go through and you do all of these pieces. Otherwise, what I can tell you that's going to happen, your kids are going to get on the STAR test and they're going to feel overwhelmed because they're not going to know how to track their thinking, and they're not going to know how to create a tool or utilize a tool because we have not modeled that for them. So that's the importance of me taking the time to show you this video to kind of recap what it should look like. If you need more examples or just support in implementing this tomorrow, please shoot me an email after watching this video so that you can specify exactly what you're looking for, meaning give me the skill, right? So that I then can think through how it can look for students here, right? If I were you, I would have me an exemplar because I need to track and see our students' notes lining up with what I have on my screen to scratch paper. This is how you'll know whether or not kids really understand how to utilize a tool or if they're using it correctly. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I create this video for you guys to kind of take some of the questions and some of the doubts away about it being effective. It is an effective tool. However, you have to model it, you have to practice it, you have to make it meaningful, and more importantly, you have to make it relevant for kids. Otherwise, will it work? No, it will not. Okay, so those are your pieces and those are your rocks, is to make this relevant, to make it attainable, and for students to be able to do this by you modeling and then showing them more intently how to do this, and then what type of questions will we show our work or show our thinking on paper. Okay, so if you have any other questions, please let me know. Thank you guys for everything. I look forward to seeing this work in your classrooms happening tomorrow morning. I will be around just to kind of check and see where we are, and I'm expecting 100% participation. Thank you.